Exit stage right. Your stage left. Okay. So, I'm talking about why the education system needs to change. Albert Einstein once said, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. That is what we live in under today's education system, a system that forces fish to climb trees, cows to fly, and all sorts of other animals to do what they can't. Okay, there's that fish. Tell me, if a doctor prescribed the same pill to every patient that came into him, what do you think would happen? The results would be catastrophic. So why does our education system teach us like this? Questions. Okay. If you were to ask any scientist or parent with more than one child, they will all tell you the same thing. No two brains are the same. Not the same. And if there were to be a store that sells all one-size-fits-all clothes, imagine the people that don't fit into these clothes. They'll all feel like they're not part of the all in the one-size-fits-all. How does that help anybody? Switch hands real quick. Ooh. Okay. The education system doesn't seem to be making people smarter. They aren't teaching us important things for our lives. Like, who knows how to do taxes? Yeah. Who knows how to write a cover letter? This is because, from the beginning, the school system has just been teaching us to be obedient, sit in straight lines, raise your hand when you have to go to the bathroom, telling us when to eat, when you can leave, all signaled by bells. Does that sound familiar? Like a factory? That's because from the beginning, schools were made to make people work in factories. Yeah. Okay, that was great for the past, but now we need future visionaries. We need people thinking creatively, innovatively, critically, and independently. We need people that are going to be our future. The inventors, doctors, politicians, Nobel Prize winners, the artists and filmmakers, and the teachers, who, by the way, are the most underpaid people for their jobs, since their job is to mold the minds of our future. And if you remember one thing from my talk today, remember, schools are to create our future, not to recreate our past. Thank you. How do I turn it off? Do I just hold it or press it once?
Thanks. Hi, everybody. All right. Okay. How many of you feel like being in high school kind of sucks? Us teenagers have a bunch of outside stressors we have to deal with. All right, there we go. Outside stressors we have to deal with while maintaining good grades. I'm talking to you today with the hopes that some of you might relate or some might even begin to worry less about certain less important things. All right. Maintaining good grades while maintaining a social life with a significant other, just hanging out with friends, or going out and doing something all while trying to keep a stable job is very difficult. Some of us even have more than one job, which takes up most of our after-school hours and most of our weekends. Another thing that adds to our stress is the pressure from teachers who want to know what we're going to be doing with the rest of our lives, but a lot of teachers don't even help us while we're here at school. I know plenty of kids that have missed out on school events because their GPA didn't match the requirement, because they've failed classes, or they were absent from school for a few days and their teacher doesn't do makeup work, or doesn't understand that they may have actually been sick or have a real significant reason to not be at school for those few days. I also realize that some kids might stress themselves out because they are too worried about how others see them. They worry about whether or not they're getting the new shoes coming out, or whether somebody has the same sweater on as them. In reality, you are your own biggest critic, and nobody's really worried about what you have on. You also need to be your own biggest fan and have confidence come from yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself one thing that you like about yourself every day. These are all things that high school kids deal with every day, even if it isn't as apparent as you think. Luckily, we are finally seniors this year and will be graduating sooner than you think, so we won't have to deal with any of this after then. However, we'll have to deal with a whole new set of responsibilities and stressors, such as paying bills or going to a university, community college, or straight to working. Or whatever path you choose, I hope... Oh, I'm behind. Whatever path you choose, I hope you all have fun with the rest of your lives and are genuinely happy in whatever you do. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Okay. How many of you guys have senioritis? Yeah. How many of you guys have a shit ton of work you need to do? Keep your hand raised if you feel rushed to get things done. That's the problem I want to talk about. We're constantly, could I start over, Mr. Corona? Okay. Raise your hand if you have senioritis. Raise your hand if you have a shit ton of work you need to do. Keep your hand raised if you feel rushed to get things done. That's the problem I want to talk about today. Everyone's always caught up in what they need to do, stressing because they haven't done something. This can lead to high levels of anxiety and stress. We all know stress is bad for our health, yet we live in a time is money society. We constantly feel pressured to do more. If we don't, someone else will get ahead of us. After all, we live in a dog-eat-dog society. Staying on that note, we're constantly bombarded with the idea that we should be doing more at school. Whether that's getting a high GPA, joining leadership, sports, volunteering, etc. We've been taught to have the mindset to get things done fast and efficiently, but while learning this, we've forgotten about quality. I personally would rather have a project that I'm proud of than a project that I just spit out to get done. This directly correlates with passion. If we aren't passionate about something that we're doing, then of course we're not going to care much about how our project turns out. We need to find what makes us happy and how to get good at it. As seniors in high school, we're expected to have everything planned out. What we want to do in life, who we want to be. I say, forget that, and just see what you find interesting. Now, how are we supposed to do this? First, start small. Try a new hobby, join a new club, just try something different. If it's not for you, then try something else. Once you found something that you're interested in, then look what jobs are in that field. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do. I'm interested in film, but I don't know exactly what I want to do. Once you've done this, you need to set goals to how you're going to get into that field. This could mean researching colleges, programs, or even watching YouTube videos. Lastly, surround yourself with people who will support you. Get rid of the snakes in your life. You need people who are going to support you in a positive way. You need people who are going to support you in a positive way, helping push you to get where you want to go. I know my best friend Lily is helping push me to do scholarships so that I could go to the college of my choice, CSU Long Beach. Go 49ers! With all this advice about finding what interests you, you need to be in touch with reality. Not everything is going to be easy. You're not going to have good days every day. Life is a roller coaster that doesn't stop when you need a break. That's just how it is. It's rushed. And once you've accepted all this, you can learn to work with, not against the constant rush of life. Thank you.
stuff. What does this button do? Do you know?
It's like for stand.
Hello? Oh, hi. Hello. All right. Hi, good morning. All right, so for my topic, stereotypes of the LGBTQ community and the harm they can cause on all fronts, even if you aren't gay, I wanted to start off by presenting my topic by asking you all a question. What sexuality do you think I am? Go ahead. Second, shout it out, go. What the heck, you guys? You guys are the worst. I'm sure a lot of you have assumed that I'm gay or lesbian. And I want to talk about why most people assume that. But before I go into that, well, actually, while I go into that, I will present some other stereotypes. For example, the gay stereotype. A man who tends to be feminine, talks a lot with his hands, probably is in theater, might do some fashion, maybe makeup or anything of the sort. Whereas a lesbian stereotype is a woman who tends to be more masculine, wears more masculine clothes, probably has short hair. I'm really surprised this image doesn't have short hair. Just by the way, for these images, I just looked up blank and then stereotype and then put the first image that I found. I don't know why she looks like Rosie the Riveter. I guess that's a thing. And then bisexual stereotypes I found were really interesting that there were no images, because anyone can be bisexual. It doesn't matter if you're male or female or not. But the bi stereotype is really interesting because it talks about how you're eventually going to have to choose. Like, you haven't found the right person yet. You just got to wait. And eventually, you'll pick a team. That's not how this works. Finally, this is my least favorite slide in my entire presentation. Transgender stereotypes. This is supposed to be a trans woman. And I think that it's offensive and disgusting, because for people who are trans, you go through so much already. You suffer and you don't know who you are and you feel invalid, and for this image to be their stereotype is really offensive. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, what the heck does that have to do with me? Well, I don't even remember what my next slide is. That's interesting. Well, all of these stereotypes, they create a stigma. A stigma around gay people, lesbian people, anyone who identifies as LGBTQ. They put an image that all people of that sexuality should look like. And for me, because I am not a lesbian, I always felt like I had to differentiate myself from that stereotype. Clearly, I do a really bad job at it. But people used to call me a lesbian like it was an insult. And I found that offensive, and I don't know why. I like girls and guys and everything else. Whatever you identify as, if you're hot, I probably like you. It's just, this stigma makes people of the LGBTQ community continue to feel alienated. Well, in a society that constantly pushes the heterosexual agenda, we already don't have examples of us. We already can't find ourselves in media. And so for these stereotypes to be around, it just makes us have a harder time knowing where to fit. And then for those of us who don't fit into any of these stereotypes, we are constantly pushed to be one of these stereotypes. These two people are androgynous. These are different sexualities and gender identities that aren't listed in the stereotypes, in the LGBT part of it. Oh my God, shut up, you're not helping. For me, that's the pink, yellow, and blue flag. That's pansexuality, that's what I identify as. And then this flag over here, the pink, the purple, the black, the white one, that's gender fluidity, which is also something I identify as. And so for someone who doesn't really fit into any of the boxes I just listed, we're constantly like, you're a lesbian. You fit into the lesbian stereotype. And like, I'm not lesbian, so I don't know. And then another thing that's really interesting about these stereotypes is they tend to be white people, most commonly. And for people who are LGBTQ and are, I don't know, words are hard. People of color, thank you. They already have a harder time. They already have a harder time being a colored person, and they're gay. So you gotta fight on two fronts at all times, and for these stereotypes to all be white people, it just makes it harder for them. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what the stereotypes say. It really doesn't. Because in the end, everyone's different. Everyone's an individual. And so I like to present the idea of individualism to you all. And so before you categorize someone as gay, lesbian, trans, you're probably not going to identify them as bi. They're probably just going to tell you. Just think about who they are as a person and not what sexuality they identify as or the boxes they fit in. Thank you.
I can't. I pressed it already. You have to hold it. You gotta have to press this because it's not working.
Hi, daddies.
Okay.
Hi. Okay, this is weird. Never really talk in front of everyone. I'm kind of nervous, but yeah. Okay, so look to the person on your left or on your right. It doesn't matter. You start to notice that we all look different, appearance-wise, and as you look at how they open their mouth, you start to hear words you've never heard of. You start to notice that we don't share similar background stories. We've all came from different countries, different cultures, different everything. Not a single person is the same. We walk amongst this earth, and not a thought crosses our minds that maybe we don't know what it's like to be in that person's shoes. And after you start to notice these things, there's this thing in your head called curiosity. So that's what I did the other day when I was able to interview someone from a completely different background. He was from Yemen, his family was back home, and he traveled by himself here in California. He told me that there's no chance that his family was able to come in the US at all, and that made my heart break. Then I heard similar stories from different people like him. I wasn't able to ask why he left his country, but I assumed that he traveled here, hoping to experience the American dream. The wealthiness, the education that we're given, etc., but we don't notice the hardships they have to go through as an immigrant. Okay. 1. Language barrier. I was 9 when I first came here, didn't know a single word of English. My first day of school, I forgot my notebook at home, and as a nervous wreck, I started to babble words that weren't English. My teacher was Filipino, but I was afraid because she was mean and she had glasses that made her look mean. I didn't know what to do after she yelled at me because I didn't have my notebook, so I asked, "Teacher, pwede bang magamit yung cellphone niyo?" Which translates to, "Can I use your phone?" I planned to talk to my mom and ask her to bring my things, but instead, I yelled out crying, "Ma, insimpat tala, laan wala. Ma, let's go back home, come get me." Begging and begging until I eventually stopped for her to come pick me up. Coming into a country from a completely different lifestyle, I was afraid. Looking around in a room full of people who knew how to speak English made me feel overwhelmed, that I felt the need to learn English in order to become successful later in life. Kind of behind. Okay. 2. Culture gap. One thing that stood to me was the American culture and how hard it is to adapt coming from a different background. In the Filipino culture, you have to say po or opo to show elders respect. In America, there are no limits as to how to talk to anyone, but there are consequences. Filipinos also do things like overfeeding our visitors to show hospitality and more. Three, sacrifices. The hardest experience being an immigrant is that you feel alone. Like in my friend's situation, in order to achieve the life you want, you have to sacrifice a lot of things like leaving your loved ones back home. As an immigrant, you are also expected to work harder to support the family you left. Okay, this is my last one, sorry. Immigrants and refugees just want to be treated like everyone else in the world, to be treated like a human. Although it may be hard to adapt, we should respect and give time to those people to get used to the culture and the lifestyle. Stop giving them a hard time, instead help them. Let them learn from you, you learn from them. It may take a while, but immigrants and refugees should not be treated unfairly. I have a video after too. Yeah, thanks. It's about culture gap. It's like 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. Bye. Own culture that others didn't do on their own.
Sinasabi namin yung po at opo sa mga nakakatanda dahil yan ang sinyalis ng paggalang sa mga nakakatanda.
Bakit natin ino-overfeed yung visitors?
Hindi naman ino-overfeed. Hospitality lang. Just kahit na anong hirap, parang maganda yung pakiramdam na pag may bisita ka, hindi naman ma-overfeed pero napapakain mo kahit paano, kahit na anong hirap mo. Dahil ganun lang ang Pilipino.
Every single one of us belong in race groups. These race groups of people teach different beliefs,
Hey guys. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. How many of you guys believe that school either causes anxiety or depression or some mental health issue? Okay, didn't really need your answer, just wanted to add time. I think yes, 100%, because it's high school. So when I first started high school, I literally thought it was going to be the best thing ever. I imagined this. I imagined running through the halls, throwing papers, like the best thing ever, High School Musical. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm going to go through the halls. My classrooms are going to be the best classrooms ever. Like, hooray. That didn't happen. That was me every day. I started to hate school, but not school itself, but what it did to my mind, what it created in me. High school gave me anxiety. It was to the point where I would always be on hyper alert. Even if I wasn't in school, I would get panic attacks. I would just freak out just thinking about everything I had to do. High school gave me a new friend, anxiety. And so now I need to make sure my new friend isn't crying in the corner because it's anxious. You know what I mean? High school makes an atmosphere that hurts our brains. Competition, fight to the death. Okay, maybe not to that extent, but you guys get what I mean. You have to be the best, and if you're not the best, you're the worst. This results kids to have anxiety. The feeling of not being able to do anything right. The feeling of being worried every day when there's a 0.000% chance that anything will go wrong. A doubt that will ruin your day, your week, your month. Yeah. Making you have panic attacks every 2 minutes or whatever. But why? Why does school do this? I don't think they mean this. I don't think they try. They don't go out and be like, we're going to have kids have mental issues. I don't think so, okay? But at this point in our life, it's all that matters. Everything that matters is getting the grade. Getting that A+, that 4.0, and if not 4.0, graduating. It's everything that's around us. It doesn't matter if you haven't slept in 5 days or if you've been having mental breakdowns since the morning since you got here. It doesn't matter as long as you have those grades on your report card. That's all that matters. Y'all need to stop. I'm tired of all this. I'm tired of being scared that I won't graduate because I have too much work happening right now. I'm stuck in a school system that cares more about what is given than how it's done, what is created without creativity. They care more about you turning stuff in than you learning about it and actually understanding. They'd rather see results than see if you actually learn it. I put this quote up because I feel like this is what school means. We're losing our minds. They don't even notice. They won't even care. Even if they were to notice, they wouldn't care. School needs to understand that all these surprise quizzes, all these 20-page homeworks, projects overlapping each other because it's about to finish needs to stop. I understand what y'all trying to do, but I know there's a better damn way to learn than doing all this. And because of that, I now have chemicals in my mind that will never go away. Thank you. Get on stage. Wait, which one is it? Right to go right. Okay. I should have, but yeah. Okay. So some of you guys may see this creature as an interesting hairless rat or an odd snake that is not to be loved. But in fact, these creatures are one of the most cuddly breathing things on this planet, mostly because they are always cold. These Sphinx cats are alone amongst other cats that have fur, and they need your love. In lots of other people's lives, humans have pretty regular, loving animals as pets. Maybe birds, normal-looking cats, and dogs. They would probably never turn their heads and own one of these. Sphinx cats are indeed different. They are difficult to handle, and they look like chihuahuas, which can cause others to run towards animals that will look prettier and will not cost them as much in the long run, like a dog. Well, it all happened in the 1960s due to a genetic mutation that caused them to be hairless. Because of this, it could be really hard to give them the special care that they need. These cats are really expensive to start off with because of their problem. They are bred and mostly born healthy, but there are still a lot of unlucky ones. With their breeding, lots of problems could appear, like respiratory problems, heart disease, and effects in muscle function. Sounds like a really problematic cat, so why would you ever come near one? Well, if you're actually alive and have a soul, you must have feelings and emotions just like any other living organism on this planet, like Sphinx cats. They are very much alive as other cats in this world. They feel the same way others do, and they think similarly as other things. Sphinx cats love others and just want to be loved back, just like how you want to be loved back. Despite the problems they come with, they are very affectionate and true to their owners. Just how an owner would be very affectionate to their dog, which would care about their human no matter the cost. Maybe you have turned your head towards these cats because of your lonely love life. You need a companion, a friend there for you. But maybe you still think these unique cats are still ugly and would never have one as your own. But if you ever come across one of these roaming around, do not be afraid to brush your hand over its silky skin, for it will feel the affection others are too afraid to give them. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thanks. Oh, I have gum. I had to spit it out, sorry. How do I do this? Just this. Woo! All right. All right, let's find the way that this works best for me. Okay. Hello. When I was younger, I went to a sleepaway ranch camp for 2 weeks of every summer. We sang camp songs, made friendship bracelets, and played improv games. Among all of the fun, we had daily morning chores, most of which included caring for animals. Through our routine chores, I learned that these farm animals were incredibly loving.
Pigs loved to have their backs scratched. Chickens could be held if you were gentle, and calves would cuddle into your hands after feeding them. Although I loved petting the chickens and feeding the cows, pig chore was always a favorite of mine. We could feed them, pet them, and when it was extra hot, put sunscreen on their backs. On my 3rd year of camp, I noticed that my favorite pigs had been replaced. Over breakfast that day, I asked what had happened to them, to which someone responded, "We have to get the bacon from somewhere." I was devastated, and needless to say, I steered away from bacon for the remainder of camp. Sorry. After this occurrence, I became more curious about the ethics of eating meat. I began to wonder what made some things wrong and some things right. Over the course of the next 3 years, I tried to educate myself on animal rights, factory farming, and lessening my consumption of meat. I also learned about animal intelligence and what it meant to be a sentient being. A few years after my camp experience, I went vegetarian. I cut out pork and beef first, chicken, then seafood. It was difficult at first to find substitutes for the things I used to eat, and don't even get me started on going out to eat. It seemed as though everything had some type of meat product in it. But that only furthered my determination. Although my initial reasonings for going vegetarian were moral, they eventually became environmental as well. We use 56 million acres of land for animal agriculture, while only 4 million acres of land go to growing produce. 1 acre of land can produce 250 pounds of beef, but that same acre could produce 50,000 pounds of potatoes. The world's cattle alone consume a quantity of food equal to the caloric needs of 8.7 billion people, which is more than the entire human population. I understand that going vegetarian is not for everyone, whether the reasoning being health concerns, culture, or simply just enjoying meat. It's unrealistic to expect or ask that all people go meat-free, but I do think it's important and necessary for us all to become more meat-conscious. If we all had one meat-free meal a day, or even per week, we could save so many lives and so many resources. If only one person were to eat a plant-based diet for one day, we would save 1,100 gallons of water, the equivalent of 20 pounds of carbon dioxide, and one innocent animal's life. Thank you.
Nathan, don't you need a mic?
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't need the mic, but like, if someone wants to hand me a mic, I would.
Great to go.
Okay.
And then once it gets to the video, I'll play it.
Got it. Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Nathan Perry, and my topic is why LGBTQ+ representation in mainstream media is important. Do you guys remember growing up and seeing a character on Disney Channel or Nickelodeon you related to because of where they were from or what race they were or where their family was like and where they were from? Now, do you remember an LGBTQ+ character that a young gay kid could look up to while looking for some guidance when they're coming into themselves and realizing they're gay? TheVerge.com says that 2017 was the best year for representation of gay people in mainstream media because there was a record-breaking 6.7%. 6.7% is a record-breaking number. That means that there is 58 out of 901 characters in mainstream media that a gay kid can look up to. Now, you might be wondering, I'm sure that there's more than just like I'm sure that there's gay characters around, and I'm not gonna stand up here and pretend that there's not a single gay character I can think of. Now, whether that's because there's more of them or because I only allow myself to come in contact with them is a different story, but needless to say, there is more of them. And I'd like to talk about a few right now, starting with the very first gay character in mainstream media, Steve, from the then now popular sitcom in 1971, All in the Family. His storyline was that he was friends with one of the main characters. He was friends with the father of the main character's family, and he was coming out after accusations from the main character's son of his sexuality. Sounds like a good amount of representation in a show for the very first time, right? Well, this is a conversation that the family had earlier in that episode. If you could play the video.
Stop that. Roger's not a strange little birdie.
His pal Roger is as queer as a $4 bill, and he knows it.
That's not only cruel, Daddy, that's an outright lie.
You know something, Archie? Just because a guy is sensitive and he's an intellectual and he wears glasses, you make him out a queer.
I never said a guy who wears glasses is a queer. A guy who wears glasses is a four eyes. A guy who is a fag is a queer.
All in the Family ran for 9 seasons and it had aired 205 episodes when it was finished. Steve was in 1 episode in the very first season. And that brings me to the very first reoccurring gay character, which was a character on the 1972 sitcom The Corner Bar named Peter Panama, who was described as his character being a quote-unquote flamboyant set designer, which took Rich Wandel, the then president of the Gay Activist Alliance, to go far enough as to say that Peter Panama was, quote, the worst stereotype of a gay person I've ever seen. So that was the very first reoccurring gay character. And that doesn't even go into the first trans character in mainstream media named Eddie on the TV show in 1977, The Jeffersons, which was played by Veronica Redd, a biological woman. So the very first trans character on a mainstream media TV show was played by a biological woman and not an actual trans woman. Now you may be saying to yourself, sure, in media it's nice to have representation, but how important is it really, right? Tracy Ewing, the CSUN professor of childhood and adolescent behavior, says that children's TV shows, children's TV programs share their beliefs in what society should be like, which can go far enough to change the opinions of the future generation, the way they think, and hopefully even the way they act. I'd like to share a story that the Twitter user Sapphic Geek, or Mary, shared a while back, talking about an experience she had at work in the comic book shop she worked at. This young teenage girl walked in after school one day, and she was talking about how she was very nervous and how she didn't seem like she wanted to talk to anybody until she was talking about that Mary finally got her to say that she was looking for the new Supergirl comic. And from there, they started talking about the TV show on CW that I'm sure some of you guys know of. It's still airing today. And she was saying that Alex Danvers is her favorite character. And they started talking about Alex Danvers and her coming out story arc. And this young girl burst into tears and was freaking out and having a full-blown panic attack. And Mary had no idea what to do. She thought, what did I do? Did I offend her? Did I say something wrong to make her upset? And they got to talking, and the young girl said that for the longest time she wanted to kill herself. And seeing a character on a TV show that she could look up to and relate to made her not want to. Characters in mainstream media are important because it gives queer people an opportunity to see somebody that they can look up to and really relate to. And if one person can go far enough as to see somebody that they can look up to for being amazing and have a wonderful life and be queer, and that can change, and that can stop somebody from taking their own life, then don't you think it's important enough? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about pressure. Every day we have pressure. Different roles in the society deals with different pressure. Students have the pressure in school. Parents have the pressure with getting a better life for the family. I bet nobody here like to feel pressure, right? But pressure is natural to have, as we are still alive. Sometimes it's making us so panic, and we would just give up. Why do then we have so much pressure in life? And then is that pressure puts us into a panic mode, actually making us focus. It can reveal our potential ability to do anything. Don't you think that amazing? Usually before feeling pressure, you're kind of thinking how you spend your easy day, like play, eat, and sleep. But then you realize you have tons of things to do. That's when you feel pressure. Things starting to build up, and suddenly you feel like you're carrying a big rock on your back. Definitely you will be annoyed. But after you have all your things done, you feel refreshed and forget everything to do whatever you want to do. Taking me as an example, I feel pressure whenever I have an essay to turn in. It's because I have a habit of starting my homework after I feel myself have played enough video games. So there was one time I just completely forgot about time and kept playing video games. As the midnight came closer, I finally realized that I had an essay to turn in tomorrow. I said to myself, it appears that I need to stay up late for the whole night. I couldn't sleep even I was sleepy. I just had to finish the essay. There was pain hitting my nerve. I will get a bad grade if I get it done on time. The pain kept me wake up and concentrate on the essay. And as I was working on my essay, gradually, my essay was done and even took less time than I thought. I was also quite surprised I then fall asleep in the process. After I finished my essay, I took a deep breath and forget everything and lay down on my bed to have a nice sleep. A former US Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, once said, "A diamond is a chunk of coke that did really well under pressure." I forgot everything. I often have to accept and challenge pressure, even I don't want to. Sometimes you just can avoid it. Pressure amazed me that I actually perform better under it. People tend to think pressure makes them stressful, thus perform worse than their usual time. If people challenge pressure, I bet an opposite effect. I know that some people would also argue that too much pressure will increase the risk of having heart disease. Oh yeah, maybe old people shouldn't have pressure. Anyway, I'm still gonna say, try to accept and challenge pressure. You will never know how good yourself actually are. Thank you.
Who's next? To switch.
Okay. Thank you. Hi. Okay. Just to get it out of the way, this is not part of this. I haven't slept in a week. I am exhausted. I don't even want to do this. I have stage fright. So, what's your name? The teacher? Corona? I haven't been in your class, obviously. I haven't gone. I've only ever done this entire school year, the extra credit and this. And I kind of don't want to do this if it doesn't do anything with my grade. If it doesn't take me up to a D, it's not really a loss. Would it take me to a D if I did this? I have no idea either. Fuck it. All right. Cool. What does it take to be heard? It's not due to the fact that you're boring or obnoxious. Well, that's not the main factor for people tuning out, at least. The voice is an interesting tool because it can only do so much, yet it either starts wars or relationships of sorts. Okay, cool. With such a power, it still doesn't do... I can't do this. Okay. Sorry. This sucks. What are we on? Okay. The voice is an interesting tool because it can only do so much. Yet it either starts wars or
relationships of sorts. With such a power, it still doesn't do enough for someone. With such a power, it still doesn't do enough for someone else to listen. So what can we do to make ourselves interesting enough to get people wanting to listen? What really turns people away from a conversation are the 7 deadly sins of conversation. Gossip, judgment, negativity, complaining, excuses, exaggeration, and dogmatism. Okay. Fuck. Where am I? Oh. These are what people avoid when talking to one another, or at least we should avoid. If you're sitting there thinking, well, what is there to talk about if I can't drag someone for who they are or what I think they are? Well, first of all, that's the problem. That mindset right there is already all the don't do's in a conversation. So the need for gossip, trying to talk about this person to others for accurate judgment, the negativity that comes from this need, the complaining that you, the need for gossip, trying to talk about this person to others for accurate judgment, the negativity that comes from this need, complaining that you can't drag someone, trying to plant in that belief that is still acceptable after middle school. Okay. However, there are other ways to keep a conversation going that aren't so harsh. There's talking with love, honesty, authenticity, and integrity. Before you say it, no, I do not mean romantic love. I mean the love of wishing someone well upon one another, like a community. Honesty can be a bit tricky if you jump on it, you know. Absolute honesty can turn itself into judging, but tempered with a little love, your honesty will come out just as true without stressing anyone out. Where am I? Shit. Yeah. Just being yourself is nice too, because if you're not, then try being, wait, what? Oh yeah, just be yourself. That's nice too, but if you're not that nice of a person, then just tamper yourself with some love and then you'll be okay. With integrity, be and do what you say, or else your word is utterly pointless. Another way to be heard by people is speaking with confidence, which I am not doing. Being loud and proud of what you have to say really gets the attention of others, because no one is going to stand around and hear someone else be unsure about what they're talking about. Thank you. That was the worst 10 seconds of my life. All right.
Who's next?
We're done?
Do you want me to put